guys, so I'm back with intro to a new project. This is sort of an experiment. So for some background, during late 2018, Jessica, Amanda, and Paula came out with a series of videos featuring how many years of eyeshadow, blush, highlighter, and lip products that they owned in their collection. And then during early 2019, they started an experiment where Jessica and Paula picked out a year's worth of products in each of those categories and tracked their usage to see whether or not they could actually finish a year's worth of products according to the experiment in a year's amount of time. Amanda did the project a bit differently. She picked out products in each category and then she calculated how many days it would take her to finish off each of those products and tracked it that way. But throughout the year, while watching them go through with the experiment, I kept wondering about certain things that could cause the experiment to not work as well. For example, a lot of them struggled with panning inner corner highlights or especially darker definer shades, and it makes sense because you use a lot less of those than you would a lit shade or a crease shade, or if you use a matte shade to set your eyeshadow primer, you'd use a lot more of that than of a definer or an inner corner shade, for example. So I decided to do an experiment of my own to see how long it takes me to use up products in each of those categories. I also have a super shock shadow because basically a lot of different formulas weigh more than others, and Colourpop Super Shock formula does, in my opinion, weigh more than normal pressed powder shadows just because it has a bit more moisture in it. So I wanted to see how many uses it takes me to use that up as well comparatively, to see basically whether or not the actual amount that the formula claimed that we could finish in a year's worth of time, etc., whether or not it's perhaps more accurate for the Super Shock formulas or not. So I have again products in each categories to pan. The first one is this Edward Bess trio. Part of the reason that I wanted to put this one in the experiment is because it's very expensive. Like, this trio is $54 and I haven't really used it much. I don't know if you can tell. I've only used this shade and this shade 3 times, and I've only used this one like twice. So I definitely wanted to get more use out of it as well, and it's also a very hard pressed formula, so again, something like I don't know how many uses it would take me to use it up. Now, I did do some calculations according to, again, the formula that Jessica, Amanda, and Paula used, and according to that formula, I should use up each of these eyeshadows with 67 usage. I don't think that's possible for any of them, to be completely honest, because I do have a lighter hand, and again, these are very hardly pressed eyeshadows. But I did want to see how many it would actually take me for each of them to use them up completely. So again, I would be tracking my use individually. I will track how many uses it takes me to finish off this shade, separately, so that I have as accurate sort of result as I can. This one I use just as a brow bone highlight. I don't usually set my eyeshadow primer. I don't find it necessary for the types of looks I tend to do. This one I like using in my crease, and this one I like using as a definer shade. I do have all three of these for my eye look today, and I like them very much because they make it easier for me to wear warmer toned eyeshadows, because these are cooler toned and they help ground the look. By the way, this one is in Subtle Smoke, if you guys were wondering. And I also got the start weight of it. So it started with 48 grams. Now my food scale that I use to measure it isn't very sensitive or very accurate, so I don't know if that's actually going to help, but I thought, you know, it's a good enough thing. Now the net weight for this, the advertised weight at least, is 4 grams. I want to see if it actually contains 4 grams or more, perhaps, because that can definitely happen, especially with harder pressed eyeshadows. And each shadow contains 1.33 grams. So again, each shadow is supposed to take me, according to the formula, 67 uses to completely finish them off. I don't think that's gonna happen, but we'll see. Now the next shade that I pulled for this experiment is this Essence Single Shadow in the Grammy Goes Glammy. This one I use primarily as my inner corner highlight. That's how that looks. As you can see, I have a tiny dip over here because I was focusing there basically for a different project. But I do have, I have tracked my usage on this one as well before this project started, and I used it approximately 10 times. And I'm supposed to use this up with 90 uses. I don't think that's going to happen. But again, the advertised weight is 1.8 grams, and I'm supposed to finish it off with 90 uses. We'll see about that. The start weight for this is 16 grams. Let's see how much is actually in it. The next one is a lid shade. Now this one I struggled with a lot. I initially wanted to go with one of my higher end eyeshadows, but those, first of all, the packaging of those are a lot heavier, so it's a lot harder for me to measure it on my food scale. But also, they have a lot more product in them, in each of them. So I decided to go with this one. This is actually like a dupe palette for the Urban Decay Naked palette. I do have the Naked one, so it's basically just the exact same product. And the eyeshadow that I wanted to put into this experiment was this one right here. It's called Smog. That is what I have on my eyes today. So it's like a dark neutral bronzy shade. It's a bit warmer than the actual Smog shade from Urban Decay, but yeah, I wanted to track usage on that one. Now that one is supposed to have 1.167 grams of product. That seems a lot for such skinny pans, but again, we'll see. And this is supposed to take me 58 uses to use up. Now I have already used the shadow 8 times approximately, including this time. It doesn't even have like a proper dip in it, so I don't think I can use it up with 58 uses, but we'll see. And the last one, of course, is my Super Shock shadow. This one is in the shade Birthday Cake. This just seemed like the one that I could use the most often. It's a pinky, peachy, glittery shade. This one has 2.1 grams, and it's supposed to take me 105 uses to use it up. This one seems most like possible. That sounds wrong. but this one actually seems like I could possibly use it up with 105 usage. So let's see. But again, these do weigh more. That's why I think the formula itself weighs more. I have the start weight on that as well, and I have used it 3 times before the start of this experiment. I have wrote down again all of the usage that I started with. I will be tracking them each time I use them, each shade, and I think maybe every other month I will update you guys on how many uses I have on them, whether or not I have hit pan or have visible usage on them, as well as if there is any weight difference to any of them. But yeah, there's that. Now, I don't have an end date to this experiment because I don't want to restrict myself too much. I want to give myself the freedom to use the rest of my collection as well, because I know that everyone struggled with that a lot during their experiment, especially Paula and Jessica, because they literally were doing it for the whole year. I don't want to box myself in like that, so it's a pretty open-ended experiment. When I use up each shade, I'll let you guys know how many uses it actually took me to use each of them up. Now, this might still not be an accurate representation for you guys and your collection, because you might use eyeshadows more heavily than I do, or you might have an even lighter hand than I do, or you might use your eyeshadows differently than I do, basically. So this is just a way for me to track how many years it would actually take me realistically to use up all of the eyeshadows that I currently have, and hopefully it would help me guide future purchases as well, because again, I already know that I go through crease shades and lid shades a lot more quickly than definer or highlighting shades, just because of the way I currently use my eyeshadows. But yeah, I think this will just be a good way of accurately tracking exactly how long it takes. And again, certain formulas are different. For example, the Revolution matte formulas in the same palette are very powdery, so those would go a lot faster than my Edward Best trio. But this is just to have like a average idea of how long it might take me to actually pan all of these. So yeah, that's all I have to say for today. I will again come up with my first update in February, sometime, no, in March, 2 months later in March, hopefully. But yeah, I will hopefully have some progress to show you, as well as a sort of, I don't know, my track record of how many times I have used them. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. But yeah, that's all for today, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.